Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Marshfield School Committee meeting on Tuesday, April 15th. I hope everybody did their taxes. Mrs. Pazerski, if you could please call the roll.
Mrs. Dargan?
Yes.
Mrs. Stetson? Yes. Mr. Greer?
Here.
Mr. Costello?
Here.
Mrs. Brady?
Mrs. Brake is under the weather tonight and cannot make it. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please also join me for the Peace Builders Pledge. I am a peace builder. I pledge to praise people, to give up put downs, to seek wise people, to notice and speak up about curbside cause, to right wrongs, to help others. I will build peace at home, at school, and in my community each day. Under the open meeting law, I'm informing the public that this meeting is being videotaped by Marshfield Community Media. If anybody else is taping this meeting, either audio or video, please notify us of such at this time. Seeing none. This meeting is going to start with our public hearing for school choice. This is an annual requirement from Mass General Laws that says we have to vote every year whether or not Marshfield will be a school choice district, which means if we did do that, that students from out of Marshfield could choose to attend Marshfield Public Schools. We will open the public hearing if anybody who's a member of the public wishes to step forward and address the committee on the issue of school choice. You are invited to do so. Okay, seeing none, any members of the committee have any questions or comments on school choice? Correct. So, Mr. Greer, thank you for that. So, just as a reminder to folks, the last however many years, Marshfield has chosen to not be a school choice district, but a motion must be made in the affirmative anyway. So this would be a motion to be made, seconded, and then if you so choose to keep it that way, you would simply vote against the motion. If you'd like to make Marshfield a school choice district, you would vote yes. Is there a motion on the floor? So moved. Mr. Greer has moved that Marshfield be a school choice district. Is there a second? Second for Ms. Stetson. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. Abstentions, that's 0-4-0. Mrs. Pazerski, thank you very much. We'll close the public hearing on school choice. Thank you, folks. I don't think we have any of our student representatives with us tonight. And I did hear from Mr. Raymond that he is unable to make it with us here tonight for the NEA update. So we will be missing those two things. We'll do informational first, subcommittee reports, then public participation. Turn it over to you, Dr. Sullivan, for your informational report.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman Costello. I'm going to keep my updates brief because I know we have some meteor presentations coming up, but just a few things that have happened within the 2 weeks where we last met. We have had wonderful spring concerts at the high school. I saw them both. They were excellent. Congratulations to our students who are very talented and to our amazing music staff under the direction of David Kaminsky, and wonderful, wonderful show. Both shows were great. Speaking of music, Marshfield, a lot of students from our Marshfield High School music program went to New York City for their trip last weekend. I had a son that went there and enjoyed it. They saw Wicked, the musical, and had a really nice cultural time. It's very special that we do that as a town for our kids who are engaged in music. Very, very successful, and I had a lot of happy reports about that. And then a couple things. We met as our student advisory council, and my student advisory council talked a lot about feelings of belonging and feelings of inclusion in our schools, and what staff is doing to make students feel included and what they can do to make them feel more included. And I've been able to share all of these, I think, really interesting meetings with our leadership team. We shared some information about that. Also, we had a belonging committee meeting last night where we worked on our mission, vision, and our theory of action for the team. Thank you, Ms. Garden, for being there. That's a process that will really kind of go out like an accordion. We're going to come up with some really solid drafts that we'll bring forward to the school committee. We'll bring forward to our students, many student groups. We'll bring to our LPAC. We'll bring to families for input. So we have a really solid mission, vision, and theory of action on our belonging team as we move into next year. And we're already talking about goals next year. This year was really, a lot of it was just getting it going, getting the energy for it. And with an event like the Mosaic, I'm proud to say it has been gaining some traction. And then Spring sports they're in full swing, although it hasn't been very spring-like. But thank you to our coaches and our athletes for all their hard work in that. We have some other wonderful things happening in the district, but I think we'll come out in our other updates. So that's all I wanted to update on.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin?
The mic.
Alright, so all my updates are about AI.
Were they written by?
No, they were not.
Excellent, I didn't think so.
I usually disclose that, so, nope, there was a day of AI training through MIT on Thursday, so there were a couple of representatives from all the buildings, there was at least one administrator from every building, and then folks from our computer science and digital learning departments to look at the day of AI curriculum to see how they can incorporate at least one lesson throughout the rest of the school year, probably after I guess. So that happened on Thursday, got great feedback from the participants. And then tomorrow night, our parent and caregiver AI information session, also sponsored through MIT, is tomorrow night at 6:30 in the Marshfield High School Presentation Center. It was scheduled for the auditorium. We actually moved it to the presentation center, so that's happening tomorrow. And then, it seems like a while ago, but our last elementary professional learning afternoon, they actually worked around AI as well. So our math coaches, literacy coaches, and our digital learning teachers, they all collaborated to, first they started reflecting on some mathematical practices that they were doing. We revisited our reason behind the literacy program, but then they broke off into groups to explore different AI resources that could actually help them with their teaching in the classroom and also to support student learning. So another really great feedback from all of our teachers, probably one of the best this year.
Awesome,
Yep.
that's great. Thank you. Ms. Sklar?
Okay, so 2 quick updates. We were notified by the Office of Public School Monitoring on April 4th that our tier-focused monitoring process for cohort A is complete.
Awesome, hey.
The district's
Well done.
schedule activity is group B, so they go right back around again.
Yep.
Integrated monitoring review, so which focuses on licensure and professional development, parent and student community engagement, facilities and classrooms, oversight, time and learning, and equal access. So next year we'll do our self-assessment, then the following year there'll be an on-site review, then the following year after that we'll do the corrective action. And that's where we are in that process. And also, just give you a quick kindergarten update. We currently have 238 students enrolled for 25-26. I think these numbers are approximately where we were last year, maybe a tiny bit lower. But kindergarten screening, which is part of the special education child find process, will begin the week after April break. So screenings take place by appointment at each student's home school. Screening team members include kindergarten teachers and occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech and language pathologists, the LE director as appropriate. Students come to the school, they're asked to complete activities with the team, parents and guardians complete surveys, and meet with the school psychologist and the nurse as appropriate to ensure that we have complete developmental history for each student and pertinent medical information for each student. Following the screening, parents and guardians receive a report letting them know if further screening or referral to special education is recommended. Students leave their screening appointment having met a lot of excited and caring adults ready for them to come to their new school. They also get a calendar full of fun activities that they can complete with their family and friends during the summer, and a book the night before kindergarten, so they'll be along with that as they get ready to come to kindergarten. Getting ready for kindergarten is a big deal, and all 5 elementary schools and our preschool go above and beyond to make sure that all students are have the information they need and are feeling completely welcome into each of the schools.
Awesome, thank you very much. Mr. Miller?
2 quick updates. Martinson Roof Project, we've had several meetings. We were up on the roof last week. Our OPM is at Accenture. The select board approved their initial contract last evening, and KBA has been our assigned architect, and we're awaiting their contract proposal. We should have it in the next couple of days, and then that would go to the select board for their approval as well at their next meeting. So that project's off to a good start. Bus registration, as of about 3 o'clock this afternoon, we had almost 700 registered, which is good. We sent out our first email went out on the 9th, sent out a first reminder this afternoon. 700 represents about 21% of our returning students. So we're going to keep pushing that. It's a May 15th deadline, and we're going to set a pretty hard deadline on building routes for May 15th.
Awesome. Thank you. Any subcommittee reports at this time? Okay, seeing none, before I move to public participation in the regular meeting as scheduled, I wanted to just note and ask for a moment of silence. And it's a bit of a point of personal privilege, but it also is very much pertinent to the town of Marshfield. As this past, about a week and a half ago, Phil Johnston passed away. Phil was the state representative for Marshfield almost 50 years ago at this point. It was Secretary of Health and Human Services in the Dukakis administration, ended up working as regional administrator for the United States Office of Health and Human Services under President Clinton, and just led a really impactful career of public service, called Marshfield home for 54 years, and did a whole lot for people. Was working to his very last day and his unexpected death to help people. He was somebody I was very close with, but certainly somebody who influenced a whole lot of people around Marshfield. He was one of Marshfield's most active residents, and if we could just have a moment of silence in memory and in gratitude to Phil Johnston for his service. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, and our condolences to his wife Beverly and his entire family. Okay, we've reached the point of the meeting for public participation. If anybody wishes to address the committee, now is your chance to come forward and do so. Yes,
Can we
please.
take up any topic? Or to have you talk about something?
We encourage it to be topics on the agenda, but we can't stop you from saying things. We can just ask you not to. We can just ask you not to discuss
Not to discuss what?
personnel issues,
Oh,
staff.
yeah.
And I would just as well remind you that we have about 3 minutes per person for our district policies for public. And if you could just start with your name.
Yes, my name is Stephanie House. This is actually my first school committee meeting, but I'm a mom of 2 kids over at South River Elementary School, a kindergartner and second grader. Move the mic closer. So I'm here because I'm concerned about everything coming out at the federal level with regards to DEI in schools. And so I'm wondering if Marshfield has discussed how they're going to handle this as a district.
So we cannot respond to you in public comment because we can't deliberate on items that are not on the agenda.
Okay.
But you're welcome to address us about it further if you'd like. And certainly, I know we emailed a couple weeks ago about a different issue, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me at any time. And of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Am I allowed to ask, is it going to be on an agenda at a future meeting?
Well, there wouldn't be, so I can respond to that as just if there's an actionable item to be taken, something that needs to be voted on by the committee, it could very well come up. I don't know what you feel, Dr. Sullivan. I know you're working on the belonging team and all sorts of initiatives that have to do with it.
Well, that aside, I mean, we take our orders from the state.
Okay.
And we follow what the state.
Okay.
So like, I know I don't want to respond, but
Yeah.
if you want to meet, I can tell you exactly what the state is.
Okay.
That's exactly what we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to come forward and address the committee? No, I only see one of you and you're like, no. So, thank you very much, we appreciate that. Okay, we've reached the point of the meeting to discuss our regularly scheduled business, and I'm going to move some things around. We'll start with the world language trip to Spain. We want to get you out of here, we don't want you to have to sit around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Salamone, this is Sarah Beatty. Okay, we are here to request permission to continue with our exchange that we've been doing over the years with Spain. 2 years, well, it's just last year, so we do it every 2 years. Last year, we did our exchange with San Viator school in Vitoria, Spain, and we are hoping to do it again next year. And we sent all that information to you guys with the proposed itinerary and the dates and the estimated price at this point that we've gotten from the company. And I know Tom also requested the insurance information, and we pulled a lot of information from last time because we won't get that in contract form until we actually have kids for them. Okay. But I assume it's going to be the same. As it always has been. So what we do, we will host students here in Marshfield for a couple of weeks in October. Okay. And those same students that we host them will be staying with those students in Victoria, in Spain, in April, and shedding school there and visiting the area. That's why we do it. So last year when we went, it was very successful. We had a great time. The kids learned a lot, we had a great time. We did almost too much. We ran around a lot. But the kids who attend school, they actually like to teach classes at the end. They got to like go teach English. They split up because it's like K through 12 school. They got to like teach in these classes. And I think that was one of the highlights of the whole thing. It was on one of the last days as well. So it was really exciting. I don't know if you guys have any questions. If you have questions,
I have a standard question for every trip.
can you come? No.
That's exactly
Well,
what
that's what
I
I anyway, but, I don't know if Spain will let me back in. but-
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Smart.
That's an exception to last time.
Yeah.
So, free and reduced lunch. How are those kids going to go?
Okay.
Students who need.
Students who,
Students qualify.
Whatever that term is.
Yeah, no, it's still free.
as far as like, how would they deal, if kids who, how would they pay for it? If they're students at that level? In the past, we haven't had any kids who weren't able to, because we usually give them notice now where we encourage students to work and to save money and to ask for money. And if there are kids who need some money, we hopefully would be able to help them with that.
Couple things, they can go through guidance to try to, see if there are any.
So the bottom line is one way or another.
We'll make it
We'll
work.
work with them.
We would make it work.
Okay.
We'll find one way.
Does the exchange program itself have any scholarship opportunities?
No, we've
Okay.
never had a scholarship.
And they don't offer any?
No. I mean, it basically covers the cost.
You've never had a child not be able to attend?
No, I mean, we've had kids that we've helped out,
Yep.
but nothing like we didn't have to really do anything, we just made it work.
Great.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we've had success in the past, but I asked the same question for
Yeah.
each of the
Oh, yeah.
lines. So they want to make sure it's available to all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then he asks again.
And as a school, we can try to find, if there are things out there too, through our guidance department.
Yeah.
There are sometimes scholarships that are available for needy situations, so we can work with that.
So I know it's a first read, but I'm important.
As am I. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. This is above and beyond, and I've seen pictures, I've talked to kids that have gone, and it's an amazing experience to offer our kids to get out in the world, and also for the kids to come here.
And everybody benefits from it.
Everybody benefits, yeah, so thank you. This is above and beyond, and appreciate it. And the cost is somewhat reasonable for European travel.
Right.
So, I know you're taking measures to try to keep that down, so that.
Understanding this. I would like to know though, like, if you wanted to have something more formal about helping.
I'll take you right to the door.
How would we go about that? You know what I mean? Like, how would we handle a scholarship or whatever? I would really like to know.
I mean, other groups have, there's a number of ways to approach it, right? Where you say, like, I'm rounding up here, just say it's 3,000 per student, just say you charge 3,100 per
Oh, yeah,
student.
we could just charge it more, yeah.
There's things like that. There's, fundraisers, all sorts of ways to raise money.
Sometimes when you register for something, there'll be be a separate box that says if you would like to contribute to sponsoring somebody to do this activity, you can add money and some type of thing. So sometimes that's a nice option.
That's good.
I don't know what you need to raise the total cost.
These programs are too good though. Every time one of my kids goes on one, they end up losing to it.
There wasn't trip, there have been trips, that there has been fundraising, like, component of it, I can't remember.
Yeah, we never, I can't remember, there's so many amazing trips, there's so much, but I can't remember which one, but. Well, the other trip, the little one, that's when we just make kids like sell chocolates and stuff like that. To create the cost of that trip. It was easy to do. It has a lot of chocolate, yeah, everyone likes it.
Great.
So moved.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the MHS trip to Spain from the 11th of April to the 24th of April, 2026. Moved by Mr. Greer. Is there a second? Second from Mrs. Dargan. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining, 400. Have fun.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your dedication.
Thank you.
Going above and beyond.
All right, we might as well continue to get folks out of here, move things around the agenda. So we have some presentation on some testing data from the high school. We'll bring up Karen Goff and Amy Setter to discuss that.
You either do or I can flex it. Turn it on. Aim at the computer, see what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
Is that a PDF?
I had to jump. Oh, you may have to scroll down.
It's a PDF. Yeah, it's not gonna work because it's a PDF.
Oh, no, there's another one, there's another one in the drive.
There's one.
Oh, now you see.
Oh, yeah.
Behind me.
No, it's still a PDF.
No,
There's a Google, I mean, there's a, what?
no, that's a Word doc, that's not. That's okay, I can just do this.
It would have to be a slides, Google Slides.
Right, or issue. That's okay, we'll just do this.
Yeah, I have opportunity. You can listen, you can read, you can see it, you can scroll it.
Hi, I'm Karen Goff, I'm guidance coordinator. Here with Amy Setter, principal of the high school. We're going to go over some information just to give you an overview of our agenda. We're going to discuss data from PSATs, SATs, our AP exams, and some post-secondary data. The first one I want to talk about are PSATs. That's something that we test every year to all of our juniors at no cost to the students. We do it in October on a school day. As you can see there, the estimated cost is around $4,000 and $5,000 a year. Certainly some strong advantages to the students taking the test during the school day. All juniors have access. They're going to be able to take the test. Where some districts do it on Saturdays, and it's not available to all students. So that's certainly an advantage. It's preparing students to take the SAT. It's a practice for the SAT. Give them the experience of taking that type of test, and certainly students also can qualify for the National Merit Scholarship Program, which does offer significant financial aid and access to scholarships as the student qualifies. And through taking the PSAT, we get AP potential data that we can share with our staff and the students that shows what the student's potential is on being successful in an AP class.
And I just wanted to add that we are sharing that AP's potential data with our department chairs. We're sharing it with their AP teachers and sending teachers as well. So again, it gives a list of the potential for a student to earn a 3, 4, or 5, which is a qualifying score. And you can set that bar at any level. It's a tool that you can use. So if you set the tool at, you want to see a student's 70% chance that, or rate that they would get, estimated they would get a 3, 4, 5, you could set it at 70%, you could set it at 80%, you could set it at 60%. So you can get a gauge of where those students are. What's nice about it is it really does delineate for students based on their PSAT scores, what types of AP courses would be mostly aligned with their skill set. One thing that has come up in the past is we do give the PSAT to the junior class. We have received some feedback and regarding giving even the PSAT in to the sophomores as well, because you're starting that process early. One of the things that we've been working on is opening the gateway to AP for younger grades, so including grade 9 in our computer science. So just some things, again, it's an additional cost to the district, but trying to outweigh the pros and cons with that as well, moving forward.
In terms of disadvantages, we are testing all the students, so if we have students that are not interested in taking the PSAT, they are still required to test. Granted, some of them may finish in 5 minutes, and we may not complain if that happens if they're not interested. And obviously, school disruption to his instructional time that happens during the school day. Here, I pulled 3 years worth of data for PSAT, which is what I have access to. So the PSAT scales, you can see there's 320 to 1500. It's a little bit different than the actual SAT. Here I provided information on what Marshfield High School scores are versus the state average and the national. You can see for the last couple of years we were above both the state and national mean score. I think typically throughout the PSAT and SATs we can see that our reading scores are higher than what we're seeing in our math. I think that's often typical, as math can be certainly more challenging for us, and a lot of times when you're testing students, sometimes they haven't gotten further enough in the course to understand, to have learned all the material that they're being tested on, depending on what math level they're at. So we always let the students know, it's a nice way to gauge. And also getting the PSAT scores, it allows us to put it into our college and career programs that we use, which we are now shifting to SCORE, and it allows students to see a scattergram, and based on their PSAT score and their GPA, will give them a gauge of which colleges they should be admissible to, which is a very useful tool. In terms of SATs, this is just a little overview of the SAT. SATs are typically taken at Marshfield High School. Well, I should say our students try to take it at Marshfield High School. We are working on that and trying to make it a little bit more exclusive for our Marshfield High School students. A lot of school districts that I've learned, they're kind of turning away students from other districts because they don't want other students to get onto their Wi-Fi. So some schools are exclusively just their own towns. Which is making a lot of students register to take their SATs at Marshfield very quickly. They're quick to jump, quicker than our Marshfield students, so word's getting out and they're learning to get on there quicker. But
I can't provide an update, so this is only a week old, but so we reached out to College Board regarding this concern. I guess it's a concern that's existed for a long time, where we have very few students in Marshfield who are able to test Marshfield. And one of the benefits of being a test site is that comfort level of being in your own building, most likely familiar with the test administrator. The person who manages the SAT site base is Maura Baldwin, one of our department chairs. So she and I called the College Board a few weeks ago and inquired about really being home-based site, and initially they granted it, we requested it, and then about a week later we got information from the College Board saying that request was denied. So we pushed a little harder, lack of a better term, and really stuck our necks out there and said, no, this is really important for our students. We want to make sure that our students are able to test in a home environment as many as possible. So we negotiated with College Board so that we are what's considered a private test site, so that when we do open the enrollment for the SAT test, it's open only to Marshfield High School for a specified amount of time, and then they open it to outside students. So we're really excited about that change. It's something that they've been looking for, I guess, for years and years. This has been a problem. I think the most recent administration of well over 150 kids, we had 12 Marshfield High School students there. So we had students taking it all over the map. So again, just really being mindful of providing them a home base and that comfort level because it's a high stakes test. So we're excited about that.
In terms of the SAT, the cost is $68. We do get a very small amount of fee waivers for our students, and we certainly tell students to come down and take advantage of that. Unfortunately, it is a small amount of fee waivers, but it hasn't seemed to be a huge issue. I haven't had students get turned away just yet, as far as I know. And it costs $12 to send the score reports to the colleges, unless you put your scores, the schools in when you take the test within a small window, which personally drives me crazy. I think that window should just be open-ended. A lot of times when students are taking the test, they don't necessarily know where they want to send their scores, and they haven't seen their scores yet. And then once they see the scores, that window shuts. So it is something that we share with students so that they know ahead of time. And the highest score you can get on the SAT is 1,600. I will say, sorry, you can go to the next one. And you'll see based on this data right here, a majority of our students are taking the SAT. I'm almost kind of surprised considering so many schools have gone SAT optional, how many of our students are still testing or opting to test. Granted, I'd say there's a very high percentage of students that are not sending their scores to colleges. And here, this screen will show you what the overall SAT scores are for the past 5 years in terms of our test takers versus the state and the national scores. And again, our reading scores tend to be a little bit higher, and this you can see a few years there are of the national average and the state average as well. All right, moving on to AP exams. So the College Board is who also offers the AP exams. That's a college level course that students can take in high school. Many colleges will accept the AP exam score as college credit if the student gets a 3 or higher. Certainly not all schools, but many of them do. And Marshfield High School offers 20 AP courses. Last year we ran 19, or this year we ran 19 of them. There's a lot of advantages for students to take AP courses. Even if a student scores low on an AP exam, the statistics show that it just grows their confidence, makes them feel a little bit more college ready. So having that college level exposure during high school is very beneficial to students. It certainly enhances their transcripts as well. And, some students are entering college their freshman year as sophomores because they've earned enough credit. I know my niece actually entered her freshman year of college with 30 credits, which is a lot. So it's definitely an option. AP exams are scored 1 to 5 scale, and 3 or higher, as I mentioned, is what's accepted for college credit. I just provided a list here so you can see the AP offerings at Marshfield High School. I have to say this is pretty impressive. I think we're offering some great opportunities for our students across all disciplines. And this is an overview of our AP data. The number of students, as you can see, has significantly grown over the years. As the AP coordinator, I can attest to that. We have a lot of students taking AP exams, and there's a lot of AP exams going out, which is great. We do have prerequisites for our AP courses, so the fact that we're still testing this large number of students is a huge testament to the students' hard work and their learning at our school.
What's notable too is, looking at the total number of students who take an AP course and seeing that increase over the years is pretty remarkable, especially given that we have experienced a little bit of a drop in enrollment. So I really want to highlight that. So not only is it increasing from year to year, it's not really. I just want to point out that our enrollment has declined. So that's a huge increase in terms of students taking AP. And I agree with Karen. There are quite a few prerequisites. We don't have a true open enrollment in AP, so to speak, but we do engage in those conversations with students who might not be recommended, but are interested in, teachers a lot of times will let them take those courses. They're open to those conversations, they're open to supporting students to take the most rigorous course available. The other thing is, in most of our AP courses, it does require some summer work, so they're demonstrating that commitment over the summer to get some of the coursework done, so that when they hit the ground running in the fall, they hit the ground running. So again, there's that commitment piece, so if students are willing to commit to that and really rise to the challenge, our teachers definitely support them in every way they can.
So this shows you some data based on the number of students that are testing and getting a 3 or higher. We're consistently right below 80%. And I think 2020, that kind of interests me because that was the year that students took their AP exams at home. But you never know. Could have just been a really good year. I think it just shows there has been growth over the past 4 years as well.
I'm sorry to interrupt, do you happen to know what other districts with their numbers look like with that 3 or higher? Is that typical, or is it?
They don't, I get all the data right from the College Board, and they don't share the other towns' data. Yeah.
Okay, because that's really great. I mean, that seems like a really great number.
Yeah.
I get a quick question. So the 66 students, if I remember the numbers were in there, that scored below 3,
Okay.
are those, how many are the ones?
Oh, I don't have the specific data on like each score available, sorry.
Oh, okay, just 3 or higher.
It just gives you the data, that when you run the reports, it gives you 3 or higher, doesn't it? I guess it's another percentage, right?
And what's interesting is, as Karen mentioned, in 2020, we were taking that home, very different experience for our students. And you can see it was almost like a recovery. It's almost like it dipped a little bit, and now it's coming back around. And I think most schools have found that. I don't have the data to show you those, but I do know that other districts experience that same kind of adjustment, if you will, to some of the fluctuations and changes that we experienced, and really filling in those gaps of instruction that might have been negatively impacted by hybrid and learning from home and things like that. So
To see a higher number of students taking the exams and a higher number every year for the past 4 years, that's really encouraging. That's great.
right, and that's one of the reasons we're looking at ways that we can. So right now, the majority of our, we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to find opportunities for students to take them at earlier grades because there are opportunities. Right now, the majority of them at Marshfield High School are for juniors and seniors, so sometimes you'll see students taking 5 AP courses in 1 year. That can be really challenging, especially if some of those courses are in science where they have the lab components, so it's right now it's a double block. It's being altered a little bit next year, but again, our students can definitely handle these rigorous courses, but we just want to find a way to kind of spread that out a little bit more if we can, but we're still working on it.
Yeah, I mean, in the students that tend to take 5 AP courses, these are the kids that are also doing a lot of other activities. I mean, whenever I have a student that is taking that many, I always like to check in with them, and I always end up asking the question, when do you sleep? Because there is a lot of homework. They're playing sports, they're in National Honor Society, they're busy, they're doing volunteer work, clubs, and they're often running the clubs. I mean, it's a lot, but they do it.
Yeah, your classic overachievers, right?
Yeah.
While we're here, can I just ask what the challenges are to start in 10th grade or 9th grade? What are some of the things that?
Typically, it's kind of like the natural flow of the progression of the courses. So it's kind of also recommended by the College Board when to offer the classes. I do know there's an AP World History that's available, and a lot of school districts are starting to turn and offer that to 9th graders. I mentioned my niece earlier; she's one that took it as a 9th grader. I think the transition from middle school to high school, I think there's some blips, and if you score lowly on a high weight course, it can have a pretty negative impact on your GPA. So there's a lot to think about. I mean, you really just want to make sure the students are ready, really ready.
But we do have freshmen in our AP Computer Science course this year. This is the first year we offered it to freshmen. We just opened it up because the math requirement is algebra. So again, so far so good with that. And that's just trying to find some additional opportunities here and there. But we do offer such a wide variety already, so it's, just some of the conversations that we're having at our building leadership team level around that. And, we certainly want to increase access and equity, but we also want to place students appropriately too. So, and there are prerequisites of coursework that they just need to get, whether it's math or science prerequisite, as well as consider. So.
And I should mention too, we do have, like our AP US History has a pre-AP component that students take 10th grade. So in a way, they're in a 2-year sequence of an AP class, and they're getting that coursework as a 10th grader, which I think is great because it can make them feel a bit more confident as a junior, going from 0 APs to 2 or 3. Because some students do opt to do that. So here is some data about the AP scholars. In order to be an AP scholar, that's a student who scores 3 or higher on 3 or more APs. And then an AP scholar with honor is a student who scores 3 or higher on 4 or more APs with an average score of 3.25. AP scholar with distinction is a student who scores 3 or higher on 5 or more AP exams, which the fact that we have that many is I think pretty impressive. And a national AP scholar is getting 3 or higher on at least 4 AP exams. What's interesting when I pulled this data, we have one in 2020. That particular student, I don't know who the student was, and I didn't see their name or anything, but they also took an AP World History class. They must have done it online. It's not a course that we offer, and did really well. Strong student, certainly.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's 8 or more exams, which is
That's unbelievable.
yeah.
This is a whole lot of data right here. I just wanted to put it on there because it's something you can deep dive and look at later at another time if you're so interested. But I actually did find it really interested in seeing what the typical numbers of students are that are taking our AP courses. As you can see, like more intensive classes like an AP calculus or an AP physics, it's always going to have a very small number of students because they're very advanced classes, and there's pretty tough, I don't want to say tough, but they want to set the students up for success, so the prerequisites match, right? Where a course like AP Psych or AP Environmental Science, that's a course that is a little bit more flexible in terms of prerequisites and allows students who may not typically take an AP kind of try it out and see how they do. And it, like I mentioned earlier, just getting that exposure in high school can really set you up for success in college. So I think it's great that we offer that and allow more students to take it. And you'll see, when you look at the data of the SAT, the scores, the courses like AP Psych, AP Environmental Science, because they're so large, and more students that may not typically be, an AP student are taking the AP classes. They're not a student that has that type of rigorous schedule usually, and then they're challenging themselves, which I think is great, and I think it's a great way to prepare for college. This gives you a little overview of the race ethnicity of students taking AP courses in Marshfield. I mean, I think it reflects what our population is at Marshfield anyhow. And this reflects the amount of students that are getting free and reduced. I think there's definitely been a dip in this ever since, families aren't filling out the free and reduced paperwork as often. It's something we in guidance try to really push students to do and have parents do if they need to, or if they have done it before. Lunch is actually free because there's other advantages. I don't know how the buses work, but if they get a bus pass.
They share.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons why they should fill that out. I don't think the number of students that are taking advantage of it is high enough, to be honest. And all of it, like the material that I sent out to regarding APs, I always mention, like if you're having, a reason why it's difficult to pay, don't not take the class. Let us know, we can work it out. And then for AP exams this year, it was $99 per exam. And then for students that qualified, they were able to pay $20. So it's a huge difference. And even, just recently I had a family that, couldn't pay that, and so, we're able to cover it for them. So we just want all students to have full access. And students that, I should mention earlier, when we were talking about SATs and PSATs, when I give a fee waiver for an SAT, that allows the student to qualify for fee waivers for their college applications as well, which is huge. Because, kids aren't applying to like 3 or 4 colleges anymore. They're applying to like 8, 10, 15. And when you get that fee waiver in there, it really opens up options for these kids. And I like seeing that, especially for our students that, have financial issues, because you never know what you're going to get from the colleges. So when you apply to more, you have more options in terms of, money that you may get.
That's awesome. I appreciate looking at the data of total students who have applied for FID. Seeing that jump means that the work you're doing to spread the word on the availability of that is what.
Yeah, and it's hard to
We do a better job.
I think we do. What also happens is sometimes kids are uncomfortable asking.
Right.
And so that's why, I send it home to the parents, like, reach out to us, we want to do it, we want to give it to them.
Right.
And that's the thing too, when I put it into the college board, like the college board reduces their fee for us. So it's not just like us covering it, it's not coming from the district, it's the college board is actually reducing it.
And think about this data, so what's interesting, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and just make some assumptions here, is the data is, the last data set is from 2024, that was pre-paying for bus pass. They already had free lunch. So we found a little bit of a trend where when lunch was free, and especially where they didn't have to pay for a bus pass, they were less likely to fill out that form. So I think now that, there is a transportation fee, that's going to, I'm hoping to see that number increase. Right? So because in this data set, if they had free transportation and they had free lunch after, since COVID, there was less, even though we're all districts were pushing them to fill out those forms because we need that information for the state, still they weren't as likely to fill out that form. Does that make sense? So I think that data set, I'm going out on a limb, making an assumption just based on my own experience, I think that data set might reflect some of that.
It reflects transportation.
Right. Right, so, because you didn't need it to ride bus, you didn't need it to
Because you
get
get free lunch.
Yeah, so we really want students, who need it for us to support them, because the benefits are great, so.
This is an overall, it's a lot of information. Sorry, I got carried away. I got excited. I wanted to have all the information. But this is just basically the data scores for our AP exams. And again, like I mentioned before, you're going to see, certain top subjects are a little bit lower. But again, I think that's more a reflection of more students taking it, more students, getting exposed to a college level course at a younger age, which is awesome.
And the benefits are so extensive to students. I think one of my favorite emails I read was a student who wrote an email to one of my AP history teachers, and her email was in the fall of her freshman year at college, and she wrote to the teacher to apologize because she only got a 2 on her AP US History A-push exam. But her whole email, she CC'd me on it, I knew the student really well. She said, I just want you to know, I'm sorry I only got a 2, but I want you to know that I'm in college now. And the fact that I took that course and experienced that level of rigor and had that kind of pedagogy, she used the word pedagogy, I understand, but because she had that experience, it made her transition to college stronger. And so sometimes, it's hard, you don't want to always, I know that the score matters, don't get me wrong, but there are so many other benefits that hinge on their experience of taking the course beyond the average score.
It is really nice to see the 100%.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
It speaks to your question a little bit, Mr. Greer, on how many ones and that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
I mean, I noticed when I was running all this data, looking at it, just across the board, like PSAT, SAT, our AP exams, there's some pretty impressive scores across the English department, reading and
Yes.
definitely. And this is just some student outcome summary about, the data that students going to college. This is information that we put on the school profile every year. It shows you the number of students in the school, the number of students in the graduating class, the number of students entering a four-year college. And I think, the sample of data is kind of interesting because we had COVID and a lot changed during that with both colleges and, just their whole experience. So I think that's probably why we saw a little bit of a dip, and we're back up to 82.29%. And I also, one of the things that I think that the whole guidance department is really trying to focus on is really not just talking about college with our students. In our in-classroom presentations, we're including a lot of information about career training, unions, how to get involved. We have our career fair coming up in May, and just really trying to expose the other options. Because I don't know about you, but the last time I called a plumber or an electrician, it was not cheap. So, going into these programs right out of college and not getting the debt that you're seeing from college, I think is certainly a great opportunity for students. And, I think we're going to see a shift too in the amount of students attending a two-year school, especially now with the changes in Massachusetts with community colleges being free. I hope to see that number grow because it really pains me to see the debt students are putting themselves to go to college. To go to the private schools, it's debilitating. And if they're paying for it on their own, if they're taking loans out, if they're in a situation where their family's able to pay for them, by all means. But if you're in a situation where, you're going to be taking out loans, it's just, it's life-changing. So.
Question, while we're here, sorry to interrupt you. But I asked this question every year for 11 years. So we track how many, what percentage go to four-year college. How many are there after the first year? Do we have that data?
No, that is information that I would love to see. I mean, you can see how many, when you look at the colleges, it will show you the data of how many students graduate within the 4 years after they're there. But we don't have that data. I think it would be amazing to track, but it's really hard to, for students to respond.
I don't know if
Call 200 colleges.
Yeah, I'm not. So the second question is, are we getting the ASVAB at the high school?
Today, yeah, today.
So
Today
we're
was
back
the
to
day. What's that?
We're back to doing that.
Yeah, we did last year as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
ASVAB, Armed Forces Vocational Aptitude.
But what's interesting is earlier in the day, some of the data, and this isn't for a lot, but it's just interesting. So if you look at that, the graduating class last year was 285. 260 took the SAT. So that means only 25 students in the class didn't take the SAT, which is kind of interesting. But it also speaks to, again, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but we are a true comprehensive high school, and I think students take advantage of everything, right? So they're taking the SAT, they might not be sending it to colleges or even going to a four-year college, but they're taking advantage of that. They're taking advantage of our marketing program. They're taking advantage of culinary. What we have at Marshfield High School is so unique in terms of what the students can take, what they can experience, and it really sets them up for future success in so many ways, whether they're going to college, whether they're going to be living on their own and needing to cook, whatever it may, building a boat, fixing a cabinet, you name it. All of those, it's soft skills and hard skills, which I think is truly unique to the experience of Marshfield High School that I'm not, it's funny, I'm not sure how many of our students really truly recognize it because they know it's what they know and they take advantage of everything. I just think that data set kind of speaks to that.
And this is just kind of like a little bit of an overview of what the data was in here. I think I kind of touched on a lot of this, basically the PSAT, participation and the advantages that we're offering, the student achievement we're seeing at Marshfield High School through the scores. And it's definitely reflecting, the students are college and career ready, whether they want to go into a union or want to go to a 2 or 4 year school. I feel like a lot of these scores demonstrate that they are getting prepared for that. And our increased enrollment in APs, I think it continues to grow. We just did course selection, and once again, I'm always excited to see the AP numbers because I'm excited to see the kids do it, but then there's the part of me that cringes because I'm the AP coordinator. And And then certainly the number of students getting AP scholars, I think that was a pretty impressive slide. Students at Marshfield High School are really doing well.
Yeah, and so are our teachers.
Yes, that's the reason why.
Well, that is an incredible amount of useful data, very valuable data. Thank you both very much. I am going to turn it over to Mrs. Dargan, who I know has had questions on this for a while. So I'm assuming
Most of it,
Questions,
yeah,
comments,
because
yes.
I think we saw last year. So I was just.
Yeah, we should see this every year.
Yes.
Yes, so
Thank
I'm anticipating that, you know, I'd like to definitely look at that. This is
Yes.
extremely comprehensive, thank you.
She's been very excited.
No, this is super comprehensive and gives me a positive feeling.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes as a mental health therapist, I worry about the kids that we're talking about, right? That are taking lots of APs and putting a lot on them and a lot of activities and whatever. So, you know, I'd like to see that they're scoring well, so it sort of like helps you think it's worth it. Having 2 graduates last year, I know firsthand how many kids and their peers are getting credits at school, and when you're thinking about that, it's really helpful to knock off a semester, or maybe to be able to finish, you know, a master's in 4 years instead of 5 at some schools, and the kids are looking for this, so that's really helpful. You know, on the flip side, I wonder how much are they pushing themselves to be able to do that. So it would be great to continue looking into if we can pull it down, like into 10th grade, to take 1 in 10th grade and you know, start to kind of like get your foot wet and see what that's like, and also to spread out so you can get those numbers and they're spread out, you know, so the kids aren't, because really I think, probably like the junior year, I think they're really packing in. That's their first time taking an AP. Now they're taking 3 or 4, and that's a big jump in a year that they're trying to do. They're now on leadership of clubs, and you know, so it's like, whoa, let's do it all at once. Yeah, so maybe spreading it down a little bit might be useful. I was wondering, I think years ago we had an SAT prep class. So I'm wondering,
Gallup.
I actually meant to touch on that when I was on that slide. It's interesting, over the years, I've seen like the SAT prep programs kind of go away. Like it used to be something that I would get emails about all the time, like this one, that one, Bridgewater. But I think.
Well, I used to teach it as part of being an English teacher, but the district moved away from that as an emphasis because we didn't want to teach to a test.
Yeah.
And we felt that there were other more important things to be moving towards. And that was back in, you know, and I taught here for 13 years. I taught SAT prep as a unit for at least 8 or 9 of them.
But I think maybe what she means though is there was an after-school program that was offered.
So there,
After that was.
and it's, you know, statistically proven that students who take those SAT prep programs do better on tests.
I think things have shifted too, though, like a couple things. First, like the SAT test changed a
The
little
test
bit.
has
So the test changed where, you know, back in the day, it had these words that you never have learned.
Well, they didn't have writing in it either.
You would never use them. So then, you know, schools were teaching the test and teaching these kids these ridiculous words. And then what happened was that people stopped taking the SAT and they opted to take the ACT because every college would accept either or those scores. So the SAT was, you know, their for-profit company. So they were like, wait, we gotta change it. So they changed it and they made it more reasonable. So I think that shift helped that. But I also think because so many colleges are SAT optional, the students are not feeling this pressure to like do phenomenally. Not all colleges are SAT optional. Like a lot of the schools down south, like Florida, even during COVID, they were like, no, we want scores.
and I think it's trying to shift back.
Yeah, there is a little bit. It's a very slow shift.
I'm just wondering, because our number is so large of kids that are taking it, and I do know that people are paying for it privately for SAT tutors and that. So I just wonder if it's something to explore a little bit more and just see if it's maybe an after school thing or Saturday, or like I think a couple of schools do like a prep day where it's general test taking stuff.
Yeah.
Just things that we know are beneficial.
So one of the things that just from being in classrooms, getting into classrooms is, the SAT did shift to that evidence-based reading and writing. So that's really heavily embedded in our ELA classes, but then also our social studies classes. That evidence-based writing is what they're doing all the time. And I've been in classes, social study classes, English classes, who will make those connections to those assessments. So you know, in some of them, even our, English classes might have like an SAT test, question of the day kind of thing. So I find that they are embedding it. You're right, we don't have the test prep. What's interesting is a lot of our kids are applying so early to college that they're taking it in the spring of their junior year and then very early fall of their senior year, and then they're kind of done for the year. So fitting it in can be challenging, but in spring or over the summer, but it's definitely something to.
Yeah, and a lot of students do, like, they're doing a practice test that's available, and there's a lot more resources on
Academy.
Yeah, it's like Swap, which is nice.
Yeah, Khan Academy has teamed up and used the SAT data to then create study guides and things like that.
And just the cautionary note I'm just making, having two kids take them too young, is that you want to make sure that they're academically ready and prepared to take a college course, which is what it is.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's just, it's really cautionary to think about a kid taking an AP course that is designed to master the AP test when they're not ready for it. That's just a cautionary thought.
Yeah, there are prerequisites for sure,
Well, prerequisites, but even readiness.
Yeah.
And that's why most districts don't do it as night.
I have two more questions, sorry.
No, yeah, that's, go ahead.
I saw some districts noting on their page that they got some sort of AP distinction. I don't know what that is, I didn't look into it. Didn't know if you could just
Yeah.
enlighten me a little of what it is, or maybe how you get it, or if it's something that
We had it in Cohasset. It's based on the amount of students you have who achieve some of those scholarly distinctions, and that translated to a school distinction. So it's based on that.
So you're talking about the AP scholar? I mean, I'm sorry, the AP honor roll?
It's
So
the
the
AP School of Distinction.
Oh, so AP honor roll, so, because I've gotten that question before, why do you need AP honor roll? A few years back, or several years back, I think there was a poster downstairs. I can't remember the date, but it was maybe 2019, I can't remember.
Sounds
that. But, was that?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, so we get a report from the College Board, you can go in and review why you're not on AP honor roll, and one of the metrics that we don't meet is offering AP in grade 9 or 10. That is the reason why we're not on AP honor roll, one of the reasons there's like matrices. So this year we are offering it at grade 9, and we with the AP computer science, because it's algebra based, and students, got those algebra skills, and we do have students coming up in that accelerated math program from middle school, so who knows what the future has in store for us, but that was one of the matrix that College Board did. Yeah, they actually give you a report, I can actually share the report with you, if you're interested, you can see exactly why it gives you like an honorable progress report to show what you need to do in order to just close that gap, to get that
I
report.
mean, I know it's a company, and I don't feel like we need to, do our best to impress the company, but I'm just curious about the
Yeah,
price of it.
I've received that question before,
Okay, my only last thing was, wondering if economics is on the forward somewhere in the future. I know our business program is just like overwhelmed with many kids, and I'm wondering if that would be something that.
It's definitely in a discussion.
Department though, right? Economics?
So, yeah.
Government and economics is,
Yeah, that's government, yeah.
But it is a business requirement
Yeah.
in business school.
It's definitely come up in our conversations, but no, we're not offering it next year. Yeah.
That's all I got. Thank you. That was great. I was
Yes.
very excited.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, the whole time you guys were listening to us, the sun was going down.
It was so pretty.
There was the most amazing rainbow right through that window. I couldn't take my eyes off it. So I'm sorry because the rainbow was unbelievable.
I just thought you were looking at Mr. Greer.
Oh, the rainbow was unbelievable.
That's awesome.
They go hand in hand.
He's the pot goal, right?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Great job.
And can I just say very quickly, just how awesome it is to see the job that you're doing in guidance in your second year now. Thank you very much. It's like your value is very clear, so thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good job.
Wow, that was great.
Yeah.
I knew you would. So we have a couple other items to go over tonight. We might as well just get through the wellness policies and the community partners discussion, and then we can end with our two items that might have a bit more discussion, which would be the superintendent's mid-year assessment and the budget update. So we'll go into the wellness policies update.
Yeah.
Can I say, Dr. Mark?
Okay, Dr. Mark's going to handle that.
Yeah.
It's minor language updates.
Yeah,
What's
so
in your
Colleen
packet?
had a banquet for her son tonight, so she did not.
Oh, is the information not in our packet?
Nope, it should be in the new
It's in-
updated policy is
I
there.
was going to say, I thought I saw it.
Where are the track changes?
So I can go over what actually was changed. So a couple of things, that it really was a lot of tightened up language. We looked at policies from other districts as well. A lot of the new language came from Plymouth's policy. So one thing, in part 3, the nutrition, it used to be about peanut allergies and nut allergies, so that was changed to life-threatening allergy policy because that's current. We moved, emphasizing that food should not be used as a reward or punishment. We moved that to the top because we thought that was very important. And we wanted to make sure that there was a bullet in there about students having access to water. So
Where is that? Like,
those are all under part 3 nutrition.
Right, so I get a document with no track changes, and I have to figure out what's been changed. So-
Yeah. I don't know if she didn't share the track changes on here. So those are the things that were changed in part 3. In part 6 and part 7, those two pieces were actually added after looking at both Plymouth's and MASC sample policies. So those were really the new pieces. So one talks about just making sure that we're providing supportive environments and resources for both students and staff, making sure that we're looking at the health and wellness. That's all in part 6. And then part 7 is really about training and making sure that we have a safe environment, free of tobacco, alcohol, drugs. And that really was, that was the bulk of the changes. There really wasn't anything else, unless I said, like, it might have been a tightening of language somewhere, like tweaks in the words. But other than that, that really was the only changes. And then the dates were added. So,
Yeah, this was, the changes were so minor, the policy subcommittee didn't feel the need to meet for a long discussion on the minor.
Well, Ellen just said that you added 2 sections.
Yeah, they're minor changes that are, I believe, required by the state, correct?
we have a document that talks about all of the aspects that should go into a local wellness policy. It's Alliance for Healthier Generation, and that had some required components that you could give yourself a rating if it was in there. It had all the required language, none. So we did go by that as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at support services, that section's been added, right? So, when you and I went through these policies,
But so as you know, oftentimes certain sections of policies will be cross-referenced in other sections of policy as well. So it could very well be an instance where this policy that is required for us to have is also referenced somewhere else. And it's not much of a change from what we do already.
well, I'm not concerned with it, so I'm looking at policy versus procedure, right? So policy is how we want to do business, it's not conversation.
You said you do this for work, yes?
Right, yeah. So I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with it.
Yes.
When we've gone through, we had these policies that were 20 pages long.
Right.
Cut them down to like 3 sentences.
Right.
And I don't want this to evolve into what we got rid of, right? So,
Do you have specific instances of that that you feel concerned about?
well, I looked at this when it was sent to me. Okay, there's no track changes, so I'm not reviewing all, right? Otherwise, I have to go word for word in each document and figure out what's changed, so I didn't do that.
But in terms of the new category, you say there's a new section that you are concerned about. Is there
Well, no,
something
it's,
specific?
so support services, right?
Well, you know, none of it is procedural. It's,
I'm just commenting. You know?
No, I
I'm not
understand.
standing on my heels. I just
I
don't
understand.
wanna-
it is normal for policies to be longer than just a page, as you know.
And I will say Plymouth's is quite a bit longer than this one.
Yeah, but I don't want to be, so I want to be Marshfield.
There is definitely something to be said for being Marshfield and being uniquely Marshfield, obviously. There always is. But there's also something to be said for policies that we're required to have, policies that organizations like MASC suggest that we have. As somebody who writes policy, I found no issue with any of this, but if you have suggested changes, we can certainly make this a first read, and we don't have to vote today if you have concerns.
Like I said, I'm not taking my heels, but there are more comments than anything else. I just want to make sure we're not getting back to the way things
Yep.
were.
No, and I understand.
We're setting the scene where, you know, it's a blustery day and Christopher Ron and Winnie Pooh and Clark Sticks.
Rich and I did a full policy manual update in 2016.
I remember.
where we got rid of hundreds of pages of just stuff that just should not be in policy manual.
Right, and if you were being on the policy committee in favor of this, I'm okay. I just.
Yeah, you know what?
So the people that were involved, I'll just let you know, it was Colleen Gales, myself, Eileen Ekstrom, and Mary Beth Battis, and Amy Mann. So that was really the kind of the subcommittee of the wellness committee that looked at the policy. So I'm sure any of us would be happy to answer questions. Probably would speak the most to it, but
Was it really, Dr. Meyer, as you mentioned, being reflective of that model that they provided us?
well, we looked at quite a few.
Yeah.
So
But
and-
the state requirement.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, our practice in the past has been to look at MASC policies.
Yes.
Right.
And then strip out the stuff that we don't like. But again, since, you know, we have a member of our policy committee here, I'll refer to.
Yeah,
the policy committee.
I had so the policy committee did not meet and make a recommendation, so I don't feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the policy subcommittee because I don't will speak for them.
50%.
Sure, I'll give you half. So, I mean, I had no issue with any of this being in our policies specifically, especially if the folks who are doing this work on a daily basis are requesting it to be in our policy. I mean, we can certainly, if you'd like, Mr. Greer, we can certainly make it a first read, and we can look at policy section ADF on organizations like MASC. If you'd like to pull that up, I can send you the link for that. We can look at that. I mean, it is not uncommon at all. I know you say, and you're correct, is that what we would do is take an MASC policy and kind of strip back what we might not want in there, or feel that we might not need. But we would also add things that we feel might benefit.
Can you just a note for the future too?
Well, because when we developed the ADF, we did take that from the MASC policy.
Right. We took it in 2016, we took a lot of our policy, but I would tell you too that Plymouth also takes a lot of their policy, at least the base one from MASC.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not gonna look at that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Ellen, I don't know if you know the answer, or maybe it's a question for Irene, but on section 3, the nutrition part, it says provide information about the nutritional content of meals for parents, students, and staff.
I was just gonna make a comment about that, because we contracted with a company
Yeah.
to completely update the food service website.
Yeah.
And I just emailed Irene about 2 minutes
Okay.
ago, because it started back in November, December. It should probably have been completed by now. And I'm not sure if I gave the committee an update on that, but if you go to Old Rochester and take a look at their menus online, that's the system we're putting in.
Okay.
It's amazing.
It's all online, okay.
Yeah, you just scroll over and it gives you everything.
Okay. I was just curious.
Right now, we're still in PDF land. and it's not-
When I had to inquire, and it's fine, because like when I had to inquire
That's
about like food and Markson, it was like this giant binder. And it's
Yeah.
like, here you go,
Yeah.
which is fine, but if there's a better way.
Yeah, go to Old Rochester and look at any of their menus, and it's a whole new world.
And this is just to, as an educational moment, I guess, for all of us, is that, provide information about the nutritional content of meals for parents, students, and staff fits into a policy, right? That's a policy. But the procedural piece of it would be, how do you do that? So I feel comfortable looking at this. Well, which is totally legitimate question to ask when a policy like this is presented. But I say that as a point of like, I feel comfortable that this entire policy section matches the intent of a sentence like that, where none of it is procedural. So I don't know if you found an instance that you disagree on or anything like that, but I didn't find anything procedural in here. I found it to be good policy.
That's fine. Like I said, I'll defer to the recommendation of half of the policy.
Any other questions, comments? Do folks want to make this a first read?
We can kick this out or some changes. So,
Yeah. Would you like to just make it a first read, or would you like to?
I can move on if there was committee wants to.
I'm taking everybody's temperature. If folks are comfortable voting tonight, we can certainly just move it forward.
Oh, and now you just have more questions to talk about.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve policy section ADF as presented?
So,
So moved. Ms. Stetson, is there a second? Second, Ms. Dargan. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining. Thank you very much. And thank you. All good questions, as always. Okay, next up, we're going to talk a little bit, just a few minutes about community partners. I know Superintendent Sullivan wanted to have a quick discussion on that definition.
I did. This is something I had mentioned in my previous district as mainly about how we work with certain groups in the community and how we maybe advertise things that are happening in those groups. And, you know, we're obviously very sensitive of using our public resources to advertise any private groups. It's important to me that, you know, as a custodian of, you know, what we should be doing here, that I make sure I don't allow that. And we do have a community resource page for those particular groups that want to. We have that. That's a separate thing. But there are groups that we work with closely that provide resources for our students and are part of our community in that way. And I just want to have this conversation because I want to get a clear feeling from the committee on how you feel about these groups and how you feel about the school working with these groups in terms of putting information in our newsletters and so forth. Example being, we have a lot of town groups. We have REC, we have Marshfield Facts, we have the Council on Aging. There are groups in our community that may have events happening that are part of our town. The Trail Commission, they often have activities. They may have a walk, a community walk. I just want to be able to advertise those. And then I would say there's another grouping that are nonprofit groups that are providing some sort of collaboration with our public schools. The best example I would have is the Boys and Girls Club, who are a nonprofit group, who are working with us right now in our schools. It's their programming, but it actually ends up becoming sort of our programming in some ways, even though we don't run the program. They have a before school and after school programs in our building. We have other groups such as Bridgewater State or Northeastern that provide credit opportunities for our students. And groups of that nature that I feel that's a little bit of a different level than a group that just happens to be in our community, like a youth sports group, for instance. Because they're not providing a direct resource for our students that tie into our schools. So I just like to get a conversation about and get a temperature from the school committee on how I handle that, because I do feel that I should be able to talk about events that are happening in the Boys and Girls Club. I do feel I should be able to promote the rec department. But I don't feel that it's our job as a school district to promote some excellent groups, like for instance the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. They're not really providing a service and a collaboration to our school community. So I just want to make a distinction about that and talk about it and see if you're comfortable with looking at this, I would call it a community partnership that would be defined as a town group or some group that provides services for our students academically or socially emotionally, and working with that pretense, as opposed to a group that might be a wonderful organization, but doesn't have that link to us. They can go on a community page. But I'm in a little bit of a limbo unless I get a feeling from the committee.
So before we have the discussion, I just very quickly want to add two things. First of all, from a legal standpoint, nothing wrong whatsoever with the school district sharing that kind of information, especially when it comes to groups that benefit students in a certain way. Absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever, if there were any questions like that were to come up. The second piece is that I feel that this, and I don't know how you feel, I feel that this may be something that deserves a discussion on creating a new policy in our policy manual.
Very well put.
Evaluating where it may fit into an existing policy about sharing information. Did I take both of your points?
So some of them.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. No. I can stop. Stop anytime I want.
Yeah, I was going to say, Paul, we need to establish limits.
I agree.
And I'll just sort of my 2 cents, right? You know, Pat's point, we have educational partners and we have community partners. Educational partners, whole different thing. Right? They're providing direct service to the schools, which we use NPSD email and the NPSD website to promote those opportunities for our students. The other ones, again, community, right? So that's a whole different thing. Those are community partners. We encourage people to be involved, and that's as far as we should probably go.
To your point, I think there might be like a little bit of gray area, or maybe a lot of gray area, when you have organizations like Marshfield Facts, Marshfield Quants, that have provided, speakers or programming or things in school, not the Boys and Girls Club, where it's like a consistent kind of year-round thing, but like, oh, we'll have the speaker come in and talk about this, or have, the speaker come in and talk about that, or whatever it is. So that's probably the hardest part.
That's where I'm struggling with
That's
that.
gray area.
So I thought that was easy. You go out and bring speakers in.
But it's how do you define those?
Well, if they're, so, a good example, Columbus is a great example.
Yeah.
Because, some of the stuff they do for the school.
Sure.
If we're inviting them in to provide a service, an educational service, we can advertise that educational service, but we're not going to say, come out and join the Columbus.
Right.
Donate
Yes.
to the Columbus.
Yep.
That's where we draw that line.
Yeah, coming up with that language is important, and I can say now, and this is just, obviously, disclosure is that when it comes to creating a policy like this, I wouldn't be fully comfortable with the current policy subcommittee doing that, because both of us currently lead organizations that could be seen as community partners. So obviously Lara being the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce does so much with the schools, the annual internship program, all of that stuff. And myself as one of the co-chairs of Grad Night Live, which is a community, could very well be considered a community partner.
I would consider.
Yeah. So exactly. So I wouldn't feel comfortable being in that position and writing the policy. So what I would do is I would ask if any other members would be interested in serving temporarily on a committee like that. I think if you would be, if anybody else is willing to do that, we can establish that later to work with the superintendent.
I'd like to just to give me some guidelines.
Yeah.
Just to give you some guidelines, some guardrails around that. I think it protects everyone and makes it very transparent, which we all want.
So I will see if there's any interest among the other three to work with you on that, but I do feel it's important to note publicly that Ms. Braden and I should not be involved with that, given our experience and our positions leading two groups like that. And actually, Mrs. Dargan, I don't know where you're the president of the Boosters. You may want to recuse yourself from that as well.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, process of elimination.
Yep.
There we go.
I'm there.
Great. Thank you both for.
Thank you
Yeah,
all.
seriously.
Thank you for that. It's just want to do it right.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more.
Endorsing something or encouraging
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, and you know what, when in doubt, make sure that we have it written in our policies. That's a very good practice for us to be familiar with. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for the conversation. Okay. Why don't we start, and I know that we might not have a ton of discussion on this because it's a second read.
Second read, yeah.
We can go to your mid-cycle goal review and then we'll save the best for last and then with the budget. So go right ahead, Dr. Sullivan.
Sure. I would do, at the wish of the committee, I put it on the screen if you'd like to see it. I do have it in front of you. I did go over it. It's mid-cycle, so it's evidence. There's some ongoing evidence. And I should just point out that there's a step 5 here, and step 5 is me preparing an end-of-cycle report for you. And then with some time to look at that, and then you come here and do an open review of that after you've done your work
Right. So I would say too, and I think I touched on it at our last meeting, I think it's important because we had the superintendent prior to Dr. Sullivan, who was on his 3rd contract with us. We had moved to a 2-year review process. This is going to be a little more involved as you're on your first contract. Where you're on your first contract, you have to do it every year. And you're right, it's your first year, so we want to make sure. So I'm toying around with the idea of asking a colleague from MASC to come and present to us on superintendent evaluation as that process gets closer. Just no, it's a free service. So it's a free service because we're a member district, but because of my position with the organization, I don't feel comfortable doing it myself. I would want somebody else to come in and do it, so it's not blurring any lines. So yeah, I thought that might be good for us to kind of have that review. So if folks are okay with that, I might do that. But I think when it comes to this mid-cycle goal review right now, I think you heard all the information in our last meeting. You've had an opportunity, if you had questions, to do so. But if you have any more questions that you'd like to ask now, I would encourage you to do so. Okay. Are you looking for a vote to approve this?
No, you don't need to vote to approve it.
Okay.
This is in fact, this is just a public showing of where I am. You can obviously individually give me thoughts and ideas as well. I just want to make sure that I'm fulfilling my goals, and that if there's something the committee wants me to focus more deeply on, that I do that.
Great.
That's it.
No, I appreciate the thoroughness.
Yeah.
And that's it. Any other questions? Everybody okay over here? Did we see a butterfly?
Was it?
Okay. Thank you very much. Last item of the evening is the FY26 operating budget. Before we do the minutes, I could feel you looking at me as I said that, Mrs. Bezerski. Don't worry, I didn't forget. Operating budget, Mr. Miller.
Sure. So in your packet, this is what we typically do prior to annual town meeting in April. This recommendation to vote to rescind the vote that the committee took back in January after the public hearing. And that number is indicated there. And then it's vote to approve a new school committee, FY26 school committee budget of $60,336,636. That represents a 4.5% increase. That 4.5% is still slightly off of our level service, which was 4.76%. The delta is about 112,000. We got to that number on a couple of fronts. As you know, the first 3% was the initial town allocation. The advisory board, in their due diligence, thanking them, they brought forward another 272,000 approximately. So that number is the number that is appearing in Article 3 of the annual town meeting warrant, which is the budget article, $59,705.02. However, there's also an additional $631,634 that appears in Article 6 of the special town meeting warrant, and that number is made up of a few items appearing in that article. It represents around $19,000 for homeless transportation, which is a reimbursement that goes directly to free cash, but completely generated by the district, and an additional $236,000 that is in Medicaid reimbursements, but again, which is completely derived from the district, but goes to free cash. So in looking for additional revenue, an additional dollars for our budget. We advocated for those items to come directly to the district. And then an additional $100,000 for classroom technology, which is one of the items that is increases in our budget summary. And then lastly, $276,000 for Chromebooks, which is the annual cost of outfitting 2nd grade, 6th grade, and 9th grade on an annual basis. Working with Dave Cawthorn, we've actually been leasing those over a 3 to 4 year period to cut down the cost on an annual basis, but this 276 is going to allow us to outright purchase, which is going to allow us to use technology to increase our other luminous technology needs across the district. So allocate some of that 60 to 70,000 that we would be leasing on an annual basis there. So the one thing I just want to emphasize and make sure it's on record with the committee that although the number appearing in the Article 3 for our budget is 59.7, the committee, the district, myself, really expect to start the process for fiscal 27 at the number that the committee has approved tonight.
And I would like to follow up on that and just, first of all, thank you. That summary was very helpful for all of us. I think, this is not the ideal way for us to budget. We don't love the idea of doing this with free cash, but we have accepted that as a plan to move forward at town meeting for town approval, from approval of the residents. It is very important to us that the number that we're working off of next year as we create our FY27 budget is the number that includes that free cash allotment and not a number that does not include that. Because that will impact our budget for years to come. We have not. So what I'd like to do is just publicly state that we are looking for that from the town, which the town is aware of. And also say that I think along with that comes the need for new revenue sharing agreements, which I know we've been talking about for a while. I think what I'm getting close to is a suggestion that we start crafting a proposal for that in public session to then share with the select board and the new, the currently interim town administrator, but maybe something that we come up with as a future agenda item, Dr. Sullivan, as a proposal, as a starting point to discuss that with the town, but I do think it's important to craft that in a public session.
It's important that it's two agreed. It's not only the revenue sharing, which creates our budget number, it's also a free cash.
Exactly, that we need those
because
two.
One of the big issues has been the utilization of free cash.
Right. Yep. So those are two important agreements that we have had in place in the past, as folks know. We had the discussion with the town on what we would be bringing to town meeting. Folks know about the meeting that we had a few weeks ago where we discussed what can we bring to town meeting for approval that meets our budgetary needs. I'm happy with what we've come up with in the short term, but in the long term, there's two main goals, which is to make sure that next year, years moving forward, if it ever has to happen like that again, our starting number is the number that we've agreed to with the $60,336,636, and that we have conversation in public about new agreements between our two boards. And the discussion, I think, went well, where there seemed to be an openness to having those conversations. Obviously, we didn't breach the topic too much because that would be inappropriate to not have it in a public session. So I would like to start the process of maybe hearing from the committee and hearing from our team what we would expect to be in those agreements for the language as a starting point, and then pass it on to the select board for their thoughts in their public session. So. Yeah, please go right ahead.
So these were 2011, 2012?
Yes.
The two agreements we have in place were signed with no expiration date.
Well,
the town has failed to honor those to run that.
So unfortunately, in Mass General Law, if it goes beyond, I think, 5 years where the agreements haven't been followed, or is it 7 years? It might be, it's 5 or 7. If it goes beyond that, which the town was not following, so if it goes beyond that, they are no longer valid. So the town kind of
enforce them.
Well, they go hand in hand, right? The revenue share and then the free cash. So you share, revenue shares.
Well, I guess.
So I think the answer to that question, Mr. Greer, is that there's public attention on this. We do this in a public process to ensure there's openness and transparency, and then the public sees that we've come up with these agreements and expects that to be followed every year. And if it's not followed, then the public recognizes that they're not being followed.
Okay, so then the Facebook session.
Well, no, not anything involving social
No,
media,
no,
but
I-
just our voters at town meeting
Right, well,
should
the-
recognize that
To
these.
your point, I see what you're saying.
Yep.
So there's no actual,
Transparency from the town.
like, legal recourse, like, they're not following this. It's just sort of like, keep your handshake, like, you're agreeing to it.
Well, you sign an agreement, and that's your
I
honor.
mean, the recourse really is having the collaboration done publicly
Yes,
with the numbers. Once, you know, you work with the town finance side to develop the revenue for the town projections. And that number is put into a formula, which gives us our two budget numbers. So basically, the agreement is to come to an agreement on the revenue projection, and that's all that really needs to be done. And then the free cash agreement is essential though, because that allows that there is, and I'm not going to say that anybody is going to manipulate the system, but there's a potential in those budget projections to overinflate some numbers that are fixed costs, that if you don't have an agreement on those fixed costs, so fixed costs will be shared 50-50 between the school and the municipality. If that is not in place in a free cash agreement, I'm just theorizing here for health insurance. You could say health insurance is going to be budgeted for $15 million, comes in at 12, there's $3 million in free cash. If that is not then allocated 50-50, 1.5 schools, 1.5 municipality, and it goes 3 million to the municipality, that's where that checks and balances need to be with those two agreements.
and the checks and balances there is that simply it's our job to say, and I do want to say those previous agreements were made by a board that did not include any of us, a board that did not include any of the current select board, and 2 town administrators ago. So it's probably time for us to update these agreements anyway, even if they were being followed, to make sure that they're agreed upon by the current people who are at play. But it's incumbent upon us, as the folks who would be advocating for the school's interest there, to ensure that if they're not followed, to get to the floor at town meeting and ensure that the residents of the town recognize they're not being followed.
It provides predictability.
Yes,
And
predictability.
predictability is so important when talking about
Yeah,
jobs.
there's no argument that, it just.
So that's
It all
just,
started 6 years ago, right? That we started.
Approximately, I think the last year, it did last from FY12 through FY16. So the FY17 budget was the first budget that was not completely followed, so that's.
I'm going to put faith in our select board and faith in our town administrator to follow any sort of agreement that we come up with. I don't know what the plan is if the interim town administrator is going to become the full town administrator. I have no idea. Obviously, there's an election coming up soon for select board, so whoever is on the select board will work with them to come up with an agreement, and we'll put together our language, our proposal for language in a public setting. We can use the last ones as a base for that, and we can move forward from there and see what the town side thinks of it. But having it done in a public setting is important. Ensuring the public is informed about what's happening through our role here, as we usually do, is important. And ensuring that we are ready to take the floor at town meeting in any future years if it's not followed is important. But I'm going to choose to be optimistic and say that if we come up with an agreement that's signed by both parties, that it will be followed. Because we've been public about this a lot at this point, and I think our case is well stated.
And a new agreement could include language that this is renewed every 3 years or something along those lines. It's brought back to both boards for new signatures.
Which is a great idea,
Which wasn't done first.
and just further increases the public participation and the public process of having those agreements. So, Yep, yep, and I know, just in my conversations with the chair of the select board, that they are certainly open to having those conversations. We'll see how that goes.
Quick question on budget, so, is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so are we getting 17.5% from the state?
We're getting
17.5% from the state.
The governor's-
State receipts.
The governor's budget came out, the House budget will be released tomorrow. The House budget will be passed in a couple of weeks, the Senate budget will happen, and then the legislature will pass the final budget in July, which is a long way of saying we're not entirely sure.
Okay, I'll reword it, we're spending more than 82.5% on the town receipts, or.
Well, the Chapter 70 formula caps communities at 82.5. The maximum they can, without going into a long story, is one of the issues in Marshfield and a number of other surrounding towns. When the whole new Chapter 70 formula was put in, with that distinguished between property value and income. It really hurt a town like Marshfield. We were once at low 60%. So it's 60% community, 40% state. We've steadily increased. We're at the 82.5 cap with all of our neighbors now. So the state is looking at 82.5% of the education being provided by the town.
Yeah, that's my question.
And that's 17.5, yeah. So we're at the 17.5 threshold.
Okay.
And alternatively, some of our other neighbors were above that 82.5 and actually got more state revenue percentage-wise, and were brought down to the 82.5. But this is going on, this is 2007.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so this would take a motion to rescind the prior budget, FY26 budget vote, and in place thereof, approve a $60,336,636 budget for FY26. Is there such a motion on the floor? So moved. Is there a second? Second from Mrs. Dargan. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining. Thank you very much, folks. We have a couple sets of meeting minutes. The first set is the 25th of February. That's the budget public hearing. I have a little bit of procedural news for folks. Mr. Berrios. Okay. I have a bit of procedural news for folks. This is one of those things where my new job is teaching me things that I thought I knew that I was doing the right way, and I will readily admit right here that I have been wrong about this little thing all along. If you miss a meeting, you can still vote to approve the meeting minutes, as long as you've reviewed them.
I don't know that it's ready, but it's in there.
You can just read the minutes. You're just approving the minutes. Okay, the approval of the budget meeting minutes from February 25th has been moved for approval by Mrs. Dargan. Is there a second? You can still, you're absolutely welcome. Second from Mr. Greer. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining.
So abstaining.
There you go. And you can certainly choose to do that. You don't have to vote to approve. But you are able to, which I thought was interesting.
Well, that's not full. There's ever like two people weren't there.
Correct.
Well,
So
that meeting was videotaped, but I imagine the majority of ours are videotaped.
Right. You can always have a quorum.
Right.
It is.
So I just thought it was interesting to note, and would just like to readily admit to folks that I apologize for being incorrect about that for like 6 years.
If you're alone, I didn't know that.
And that's guidance from the Attorney General.
SSCC did it.
So moved.
Okay, Mrs. Dargan is making a motion to approve the meeting minutes for March 11th, 2025. Is there a second?
The regular.
That was a very enthusiastic second from Mr. Greer, who said, quote, sure. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining, 400. There's executive session minutes from that meeting as well on the 11th of March. This would be to approve and release. So moved for Mrs. Dargan. Is there a second? Second for Mrs. Stetson, just as enthusiastic as Mr. Greer's. All those in favor, well, actually, let's do this as a roll call. Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Dargan?
Yes.
Ms. Stetson? Mr. Greer?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes,
It wasn't enthusiastic because I abstained from the vote.
that's okay, you were there. And then we have the,
I just have executive session from 4.
that's fine, you've got time, no worries. So moved to approve and release, Mrs. Dargan?
Yes.
Motion to approve and release the executive session minutes of April 1st, 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Mrs. Stetson. That's a roll call as well.
Mrs. Dargan? Ms.
Yes.
Stetson? Mr. Greer?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes. Thank you very much. All right, folks. The next time we have a meeting is right before town meeting, which is in just a couple of weeks. So if anybody's going anywhere for April vacation, have fun. And we will see you in just a couple of weeks. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved for Ms. Stetson, second for Mrs. Dargan. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Aye.
Mrs.
Opposed?
Dargan? Ms. Stetson?
Yes, yes, yes. Roll call.